Is anybody else tired of post-credit scenes? Because honestly, I can't watch a movie nowadays without the instinct to wait for the post-credit scenes. Even when it comes to movies that I know most likely won't have one, I still have the instinct to wait for them. There are two different types of post-credit scenes. One that gives us a teaser for a sequel, and the other that is just used for a gag. When it comes to the very first post-credit scene, a lot of people tend to think that Ocean's 11, the 1960 version, is the very first one, just because the ending continues even after the credits have stopped. Honestly, I don't know if I would consider that a post-credit scene, because if that was the case, does that mean that Good Time has a post-credit scene? Because it continues even when the credits roll. What about the movie Pearl? Does that count as a post-credit scene since the credits roll and the title card appears? Speaking of title cards, whenever you don't get a post-credit scene, you often get a text saying that a specific character will return. The first movie to do that was the 1963 James Bond film From Russia with Love, where the film ends with it saying James Bond will return. This is something that continued for the rest of the James Bond movies. Now, the movie that is considered to have the very first ever post-credit scene is the film The Silencers. The Silencers is a 1966 spy spoof movie starring Dean Martin. The movie itself is considered an acceptable and passable spy movie that really would only appeal to Dean Martin fans. It's not entirely remembered for the movie it is, but rather that it was the very first movie to have a post-credit scene. And knowing that this movie came out around the same time the Bond films did, it's kind of funny that they, in a way, parodied the whole James Bond will return thing by creating a post-credit scene that basically says the main character will return as well. Around this time, post-credit scenes started becoming more of a gag for regular movies that weren't a part of franchises. Like, the Muppets movie in 1979 ended with them telling the audience to go home.
Go home! Go home!
The same gag is used in Ferris Bueller's Day Off when he tells the audience the same thing.
Go home.
Even films from different genres like The Howling started having them. At the time, they really were just one-offs that didn't add anything to the movie other than an Easter egg. That all changed when movies Young Sherlock Holmes and Masters of the Universe used their post-credit scenes to tease potential sequels, which is funny because neither one of these movies got a sequel. But then again, I'm not sure if they ever planned on actually making them or if these post-credit scenes were just another gag for the audience. But either way, these films inspired a new way for post-credit scenes to be utilized for franchises. And most of the time when they were being used, they didn't really succeed. Even in comic book movies, they didn't do much for them. It wasn't until Nick Fury came out of the darkness in the movie Iron Man that post-credit scenes really changed the franchise formula as a whole, which at the time was great. It got fans hyped and it set in motion a cinematic universe. Because post-credit scenes were doing such a good job of building anticipation and keeping the continuity in the universe of the film, other upcoming franchises started doing the same thing. Sadly, this was the downfall of the franchises. Many studios that wanted to build their own franchises relied too heavily on the post-credit scenes to set up sequels to the point where they forgot to just be their own movie. It's those reasons why The Mummy, no, not This Mummy, This Mummy, flopped because it focused too much on kicking off the Dark Universe. Also because it was crap. The same thing happened with Kong Skull Island. That movie literally had a post-credit scene teasing the return of Godzilla. And this repeating formula that a lot of franchises have adopted is so irritating. Especially the ones that serve absolutely no purpose whatsoever, and they're just unnecessarily there. At this point, these post-credit scenes are so overused that they don't even feel exciting anymore. It's one of those reasons why I hardly stay for them anymore. Even with the MCU, which kickstarted all of this post-credit scene trend, they haven't felt as exciting after Endgame because everything after that hasn't felt as coordinated. Therefore, these post-credit scenes have been more of an eye roll. I honestly miss the days where post-credit scenes were just used for gags rather than just a gimmick. But I don't know, that's just my opinion. If you like post-credit scenes, that's perfectly fine. I'm not making this video to tell you you're wrong or convince you otherwise. This was just more about how I felt about them recently. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Not every movie needs a post-credit scene.